Good morning. Good morning. So, have you ever had a situation where people got together without you? Maybe it's a dinner party or some outing, and then people start talking about it in your presence, and you think, wait, what? Well, that's where our gospel reading starts today. The disciples, they're all together in this locked room, and they're a little freaked out, right? Jesus, the one they thought would solve everything, has been crucified. Mary Magdalene saw Jesus earlier that day and, went and told the disciples, hey, he's still alive. Or not still alive, he is alive. Now, they are in this locked room trying to figure out what's going on. And Jesus, he shows up and he shows himself to them and he says, peace be with you. The text says that the disciples rejoiced, but I'm not sure it was quite as raucous as St. Clair's exchanging of the peace, which, to be honest, is pretty hard to beat. It never says Jesus had to go ring the bell to get everybody to settle back down. So we pick up this story with the disciples telling Thomas what happened. He wasn't there. We don't know where Thomas is. Maybe he was more afraid and he didn't even want to go to that locked room. Or he could have been just buying groceries. We really don't know why he was not there. So you can hear the conversation. The disciples say, man, Thomas, it was amazing. It was amazing. We were talking about what Mary said. She saw Jesus. Let's be honest, that sounds pretty crazy. But if it's true, what does it mean? And then, as we're talking out of nowhere, Jesus just walks into the room. And it was really him. We couldn't believe it. Jesus is back. And Thomas is like, what? You're kidding. I miss everything. And I'm not sure if you're pranking me or what. I need to see this Jesus. I need to see Jesus. I need to touch his wounds before I can believe this story. And this is one of those be careful what you ask for moments. Because a week later, they're in the same house. And this time, Thomas is with them. And he's not going to miss out again. And Jesus appears again. And Jesus looks directly at Thomas and says, here, touch my hand. Feel my wound. Stick your finger right here in my side. Don't doubt. Believe. And Thomas then declares, my God, my Lord, my God. It's so personal. And he's the first to declare that Jesus is his God. He doesn't just say, Jesus, you are God. He claims it and says, you are my God. He goes further. He entrusts himself to Jesus. And this is the perfect story for today, since Ben's going to be baptized. And we renew our baptismal covenant. I know we did it last week, but just in case, you forgot that we were going to do it again. And when we renew our baptismal covenant, we say, I believe in God. We do not say, I believe that there is a God. Between belief that there is a God and belief in God is a huge difference, right? It's totally possible to believe that something exists, but to have no practical effect on your life. I believe George Clooney exists. I really do. I believe he exists. And yet, it does not impact my life at all. But when we say to our spouse or to our friend, I believe in you, it means I turn to you. I rely upon you. I put my full trust in you. I put my hope in you. And that's what we're saying to God in the Creed and in our baptismal vows. So faith, it's not just some logical syllogism or conclusion. There's no reasoning or analytical framework that gets us to the solution of God. There are plenty of rational arguments about the existence of God, but those only get you so far. And at some point, we move from thinking that maybe something is out there to the assurance that someone is there. Faith is not a logical certainty, but it's a personal relationship. And this doesn't mean that faith can't have doubt, right? The two are not mutually exclusive. And I think this is one of the things I love about the Episcopal Church. There's no shame in doubt. We don't look down on Thomas for saying, come closer. I need to understand more. I need to experience you up close. Doubt is often a sign that our faith is growing. We're willing to ask questions and consider possibilities. Thomas Merton, who's one of my favorite contemplatives, said, "Faith is a principle of questioning and struggle before it becomes a principle of certitude and peace." So faith grows not by certainty, but by experience. And there comes a moment that we have to decide to try, to step forward, and to trust enough to start. When I was at Epiphany, we talked about this concept of the spiritual gym. So the analog is the fitness gym. When we go to the fitness gym, there are exercises we do to make us stronger. If we go to the gym and lift kettlebells for a year, what happens? We get stronger, right? Do we have to believe that lifting the kettlebells will make us stronger? Not really. We just have to do it and do it consistently. Over time, we see that we're getting stronger. We see the effects of the exercises that we're doing. And it doesn't happen just because we believe it. It happens because we're disciplined. In fact, it turns out that just believing, it's not enough. If I stand in front of my mirror and say, I believe my muscles are going to grow and become stronger, nothing happens. It is possible that I have tried this. And it does not matter how hard I try. The strength and muscles growth only happen by the discipline of working out. And it is the same way in our spiritual life. And church is our spiritual gym. We undertake spiritual exercises to strengthen our understanding and experiences of God. Just like we don't have to believe that lifting kettlebells will give us big biceps. We don't have to totally believe the spiritual exercises will change us. But by doing them and doing them regularly, we open ourselves to experiencing God. And that can change everything. There are several spiritual exercises that open us up to experiencing God in our daily lives. I do want to figure out a way for us to talk about them and even select a few that would frame our lives here at St. Clair's. And I don't quite know how to do that yet. I'm not sure how we enter into that conversation, but I do want to figure it out. Today, though, I want to give 2 exercises that I think can change the way that you experience God, that we all experience God. Practices that can move belief from something you think about to something that you live and feel every day. A real relationship with God, just like any relationship, it asks something of us. It invites us to show up and to open our hearts and to live differently because of love. So the first exercise is daily prayer, right? Just taking a few moments. I'm not even talking about huge, long prayers, just taking a few moments each day to turn toward God with honesty. Even if it's messy or brief, prayer is simply showing up to the relationship with God. And you don't have to use specific words. The only perfect prayer is one that is actually prayed. The point is to turn your heart towards God day after day and trusting that God will meet you right where you are. So if you don't know where to start, I wrote a couple of short prayers that you can pray each day. I've put them in this little container here. It's actually a singing bowl. If you want, you can knock it as you take your prayer. But I just laminated a couple of these little prayers if you want to take some and throw them in your pocket. And again, you don't have to use these words. You can use any words. But I just wanted to get us started. So take, and when you do this, so you know me, I like things in my pockets, so I made this. But take a minute to slow down, right? So while you could read this while you're driving your car, not advised, there is great value in just taking even a minute to just slow everything. Slow your breath, slow your mind, and then just saying a few words. And this is what this one says. Turns out I need both hands. It says, God, I am here. I turn my heart toward you. Thank you for this day, and teach me to love you more. So it's super simple, but it's a great place to start. God, I am here. Presence and availability. I turn my heart towards you. Relationship, not duty. Thank you for this day, which is gratitude. And then teach me to love you more is an openness to transformation without putting a ton of pressure on ourselves. And after you pray, just sit in silence a bit longer, even if it's just a minute. Give God a minute to respond back to you. So you can do all of this in 3 minutes. But doing it day after day after day will open your heart. So if you do this earnestly for each day for even a month, I think you'll notice a difference. It doesn't have to be these words, it can be any words. But daily prayer does develop a relationship where you can really believe in God and not just that God exists. One of the reasons I pick these words is sometimes when we think about, oh, I pray every day, but we are just coming with our like ask list, you know, and some of that's really good. Like, Caddy passed away this week, right? And so, through this whole week, just praying for Sue, praying for her family, that is really good, and we should be doing that. But there are times that we need to come in prayer that it's not an ask list. It's not, help this person do this, help this, make this, but it's just to say, God, I'm here. Help me love you more, right? And so that's sort of this. The second practice is a gratitude practice. Daily gratitude practice, noticing and naming one or two ways to experience grace, blessing, or beauty, and offering thanks to God. So we give thanks for the gifts that we recognize, and we trust that God's presence is with us, even in what we don't understand, right? So we're training the heart to seek grace when life is both beautiful and even when it's broken. Gratitude tends to be easy to create your own practice, right? I think we all have, some experience with gratitude practices, but I wrote a little example for that too in case you wanted it. And all I said is, thank you, God, for the gifts I see, for the ones I don't. Open my heart to receive your love in every moment, right? Simple, it's easy, and the prayer helps us just remember that God's love holds the blessings and recognize the struggles that we don't understand, and that God's presence is faithful in all of it. So as we practice gratitude each day, we learn to live with open hearts, trusting that even when we see only in part, we're still being held in the fullness of God's love. So today, as we prepare to renew our baptismal covenant, we're invited to do what Thomas did, to turn towards Jesus with all that we are. We come not because we have perfect certainty, but because we're willing to trust that God's love is real and reaching for us. When we say, I believe, we're not just agreeing to an idea, we're stepping into a living relationship, a relationship that grows each day through prayer, through gratitude, and through the grace of God at work in our lives. So let us open our hearts, lift our voices,